Let's now have Manuela introducing the next guests. And this is really something to show that the transformation, the disruptive innovation is already at work here in Porto, here at Católica, here at the hub, in this amazing dialogue between Porto and San Francisco. Manuela, stage is yours.
So it's a pleasure for me to present John Melo, at the moment also friend, I would say, but CEO of Amyris Biotechnology, is a world leader company in biotechnology. And previously he was the president of USA BP Pools, where he was leading a completely different business in major oil marketing. And he was the director of Ernst Young in San Jose. So I think John is at the moment since 2008. 7, okay, in Amyris. So it's a great pleasure to present him because, in fact, we met in 2016. And since there, I think we have been receiving John several times in Porto because, in fact, we have a unique project. And also, I suppose he is creating a unique business in Amyris. So, John, please explain us how important was this project that we was creating here, and specifically how we can make business from these disruptive ideas.
Thank you for having me here today, and it's great to see you, Manuela. It's interesting. It's very hard to get from San Francisco to Porto in normal times, and in pandemic times, it's almost impossible. So I'm glad to be here, and I just need to settle and relax a bit to be with you. We started talking about the idea of taking waste streams and making into products at the dinner we had back in 2016. And it was interesting. If you know Manuela, when she talks about the work she does, she is super passionate. And it was clear there was a capability here in Porto and a great academic focus on the science that I believed could really develop some new products for the world. And so we started discussing how could we do that? And we ended up in a great collaboration. We already have a pipeline of great products, a lot of work to do in commercializing those products. And I would say the biggest benefit, there's always a business case behind the choices we make. And the biggest benefit I see, the biggest business component I see, is working here with Católica in Porto gives us access to amazing talent because the talent, especially now more than ever, wants a great quality of life and wants to work on amazing science. And when you can combine those two things in a great place to live, why not? So I don't think it's more complicated than that. The rest of it is, you got to do some good science. But to me, that's the simplest thing I can explain. Being here is a great place to attract amazing scientists. We can give them great work, great challenge, and they can enjoy a great quality of life and hopefully do work with us for a long time. I think we're at 70 or 80 researchers now, and my goal is to double that, and we're in the process of doing that. So hopefully my next trip, we're well over 100 working here.
I remember when we were talking the first time, I was telling the different projects we had with different companies in the field of breeding, meat, and so on. And probably I said the word that, we have a great number of interesting results. The difficult part is that companies until now, they are not putting this in the market. And I think at the moment is really, really an opportunity. So I think some years ago we were studying waste streams, we were trying to understand the potential, we were trying to develop new products even, but then it's very difficult to put them in the market. All the regulatory issues, even the market is difficult sometimes to introduce these molecules. So can you tell us what you need to face, and especially what will be the strategy to introduce these products in the market?
I'd be happy to do that, but I want to remind you, the other thing I love about working in Porto is the people are so understated. So Manuela did not have interesting results. Manuela had great results. And I did not understand, how can you have great discoveries but not have commercial success? And I asked her that, and she started explaining to me what, the experience she had. And for me, the takeaway was companies in Portugal, number one, don't understand risk. And number two, don't have access to capital to really innovate and commercialize new technologies. I also don't think they have a big enough market to sometimes take the risk necessary to be able to exploit new technology. You can almost think about it the other way. Sometimes having a small market is easier to take risks because if it doesn't work, which is actually very likely, most risk doesn't actually work, it fails. But if it fails, so what? It's only 10 million people. Doesn't really matter. But anyway, it was really challenging to see that she wasn't commercializing any of the discoveries. And so when I looked at it, and I maybe give you a little bit of background, my mission is really simple. I believe our planet needs to be healthier. And I mean that holistically, both the planet itself from a sustainability perspective and the people on the planet from what they use, both for their bodies, what they eat, how they take care of themselves. I think we just need a much healthier planet. And my objective is simple. I want to accelerate the transition to sustainable consumption. I want all of you, every time you buy something, you buy it in a way that what you're buying is actually sustainably sourced, is good for you and good for the planet. And I believe the only way to do that is make amazing products. Because if you're given a great choice and it's not more expensive, you'll choose it. And every time you choose it, you're actually doing good for yourself and the planet. That's my mission. We've invested several $1 billion to do that. We've had a lot of success. At the time I met Manuela, I had a vision of creating consumer brands to be able to commercialize those products around the world. At the time, we had an ingredient business. We currently supply the flavor and fragrance industry. We're the largest supplier to flavor and fragrance industry of sustainable natural ingredients. We supply cosmetic companies. We supply industrial companies. We supply a lot of companies around the world. So the idea was, if we can find these amazing molecules in the waste stream and we can make them in a way that would be disruptive for these companies, then I could be a channel to take this great technology to market. That was the idea. And today, we're doing it not only through ingredients, obviously we're doing it through our consumer brands. We have now 9 consumer brands in the portfolio and expanding our consumer business around the world very quickly. But again, on one basis, sustainable ingredients from waste streams and fermentation. The waste streams are developed here in Porto, and the fermentation is produced in Brazil. It's a simple business model.
Maybe I'm going to tell a little about our first ingredient. So when we were writing and designing the project, we decided also to include not only sugarcane bagasse, but also ashes. And at that moment, we were thinking ashes. Someone was saying, nothing is going to be produced from there. But in fact, our first ingredient is from ashes. Ashes produced when they burn in Brazil, the sugarcane bagasse. So we were producing our first biogenic silica. The plant is growing in the soil. They are absorbing a lot of silica. And then when we produce the ashes, this silica is there. So we were transforming with a high purity, producing the first biogenic silica that is at the moment being tested by different clients of Amyris. So my question for John is, how difficult is to convince the clients to change from a normal mineral silica to a biogenic silica, assuming that we have a sustainable silica?
You have a sustainable silica. You have a great performing silica. And the biggest problem we have now is we can't make enough to meet the demand. So you didn't want me to embarrass you, right? So we got to actually make more product faster. And let me explain, right? We've been sampling the biosilica to customers now for over a year, I think. And the acceptance takes time. But what's interesting about the biosilica that we make, that Manuela and her team discovered from the ashes of the sugarcane. Think about that. The ashes of the sugarcane replace the need to process sand to make silica, why we call it biosilica. What's interesting, like most things that are sustainable, is the performance properties of the silica are actually better for making cosmetics than silica that comes from the sand. And it's better because the particles are finer. And when the particles are finer, you're able to take color and paste it together. So when you put it on your skin, it actually stays on your skin longer. Matter of fact, twice as long. And for somebody that's buying cosmetic products, having a product that lasts twice as long is a good thing. And we've actually formulated it with another ingredient we have that makes it a moisturizer as well as great for color. So biosilica becomes a really disruptive product in color cosmetics, as well as many other markets that use silica, because the properties of the silica we make are better than the silica that comes from sand. And I think that's an important aspect. When I think about the products we discover, and I think about sustainability, for the products to really work, for adoption to happen quickly in markets, the products have to be no compromise, meaning they have to perform better than the alternative. So in this case, biosilica needs to perform better than silica from sand. Secondly, it needs to cost the same or less. Because if you tell a consumer, buy it because it's sustainable, but by the way, it doesn't work as well and we're going to charge you more, that's a pretty hard sale, right? But if you tell them, actually, it's sustainable, it performs better, and it costs the same or slightly less, then the market switches very fast. And that's exactly what we're seeing with the biosilica. We created a brand called Rose Inc. off of the biosilica. The brand is fantastic. It's a partnership I have with Rosie Huntington-Whiteley, one of the world's leading models. And she just launched this brand with me. And again, the product is amazing. It is now on track to be one of the top 10 color cosmetic brands in the world. And it came from a product discovered here. That's for me what's most exciting. I'm not an academic, so I don't like doing research for the purpose of research. I like doing research for the purpose of innovation. And the way research becomes innovation is that actually it becomes commercial and it changes something, hopefully for the better. So it's great to see biosilica, but it's not just biosilica, Manuela. You've got now 15, 20 products in the pipeline, not yet developed like biosilica. But what I find interesting is I go around the world and I talk to a lot of big companies and I tell your story. And every one of them becomes curious and wants to learn more about the work that's going on here. And I think for me, that's the exciting part. It's not like I look at our project as a start. What I want to see is many of the big companies coming here, bringing their waste and asking you to profile. Because again, if we're going to make our planet sustainable, we have to turn those waste streams into value. And you do that better than anyone I know. So I'd like to see more work here.
Not you. Thank you. Not me. It's a big team, several researchers, Portuguese researchers in general, but I think it's a long story of research we have been doing here. So it's accumulation of knowledge and good people. So maybe before we close, I'd like to ask you just to give some advice. We have different companies here, and I think all of them are probably thinking about what can I do with my byproducts. Don't need to come to me in this case, but I think the advice would be, how can we transform a problem I have in-house in an opportunity?
Yeah, look, I'd like to use an example because I think it may inspire the group or at least give some ideas. And then I'd like to start with what inspired me to come here, because you just talked about this. My inspiration comes from a long time ago. About 22 years ago, I was working in London for BP at the headquarters. I lived in London for 7 years, and most of my Portuguese friends in London were super smart, super educated. Most of them had PhDs. It always bothered me. Why are you working in London? This place is horrible. The weather is horrible. I mean, the food's not that great. The wine is like all imported. Like, what the hell are you doing here? And you'd hear the stories, right? Well, back in Portugal, I really can't find a great job. Or, they were working for a multinational company and became senior and needed to leave the country to be able to grow their career. And I thought to myself, that's just not right. Why as a country can't we employ, challenge, and inspire the greatest minds? How can we be competitive globally if we don't actually create opportunities for our best people? Why do our best people need to leave the country to have a good job? That's just not right. And from that day forward, I was super motivated that if I ever had the opportunity to find a way to bring great technology to Portugal and to create opportunities in Portugal to hire our own, to bring them back in the country, to give them great opportunities to do great research here, that's what we would do. So when dots connected, it became obvious, right? I want to now give you a simple story about how to think about responsible sourcing and using waste streams. I purchased a company earlier this year, a brand called Costa Brazil. And Costa Brazil is an interesting brand. It's a fantastic luxury brand, great products. The products are based on ingredients discovered in the Amazon. And I thought, okay, let me make sure I get this right. So you discovered an amazing ingredient, brio. It's a fantastic ingredient. The brio comes from trees in the Amazon. And you want your brand to be really successful. If it's really successful, that means a lot of Chinese people are using your products. Millions of Chinese people. Okay. They're all using the product, and we're extracting this amazing resource from the Amazon. At what point do you start damaging the Amazon by extracting that ingredient? And so my mission with that brand is simple. It's to bring that ingredient here, understand what the active molecules are in that ingredient, and then actually make those molecules from fermentation so it can be sustainable. And then you stop extracting from the Amazon. But here's what you do. You take a percentage of the profits equal to what the village that discovered that ingredient would earn off extracting the ingredient, and you put the profits back in the village. Here's why. The people in that village still have to live. It's very hard to say, I want to be sustainable, but then destroy people's lives. And I think being sustainable and responsible have to come together. So if you have a company and you're thinking about how to be sustainable, you have to think about the total system. You have to think about not just being sustainable, being responsible and making your products accessible to all, not just the rich people.
Thank you, John. Amazing. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
John, this is very key, really, to elevate a territory. And let's hope we are at the level of the elevation and the waves that you bring together with all the international partners. Many, many thanks to all of you. And don't forget, this is the start.